I'm Nigel Hughes. I work within the Observational Health Data Analytics group in epidemiology. Report to someone that nobody's heard of called Patrick Ryan. Don't know if anyone's heard of him, but Patrick is my boss, and the project's team lead for EHDEN. So I'm co-coordinating EHDEN with Peter Reinbeck at Erasmus Centre, of course. One of my roles is also leading on the EHDEN Academy. I'm sharing my screen. Can you see that, Craig? Can you confirm, is that working?
Yes, I see it.
Okay, great. So what I'm going to do is just talk us through a bit of an update on the Academy while going through the Academy. And I'll refer to certain aspects that more recently have been included, and where we're going also more in the interim of the remainder of the year and beyond, I think, in terms of the EHDEN Academy. Also to say, and I'll put it in the chat, if you go to ehden.eu and also the Academy site, academy.ehden.eu, and there's a wealth of information that supplements what Julia and I are presenting today on EHDEN and background, all sorts of materials. We're very open and transparent in the program, and there's a lot of materials available. And I would be shocked to hear if about the 140 people on the call today are not also hearing the Voice of EHDEN podcast. We're actually in complete 2 seasons of that now. Season 3 starts off next month, September, and again, the same information available on our sites. So EHDEN Academy, first and foremost, it's free. There are no charges, and we aim to keep this free as a resource. All you need to do is enroll, set up an account, very easily to do that. I'm going to show you some aspects of the Academy now, while talking you through some of the history, as well as some of the progress we're making. And also recently, Paul Nagy joined the John Hopkins group, but many of you are very familiar with Paul, and we're delighted that Paul joined our Academy team. We have a small, we call them a POT, project management team for Academy. It's about six of us who operate the Academy, and as Paul has joined us for that, and particularly focused on educational metrics, as well as some of the educational aspects and developments of the content and the curricula of the Academy. And I'm going to steal a little bit of Paul's thunder, just refer to some of the metrics that we're already looking at post looking at the Academy itself. So if you've not enrolled and never seen the Academy, this is what it looks like. I'll just go down. Actually, the homepage. This will launch in a number of weeks. We're going to use the OHDSI global meeting in mid-October as a milestone to do a bit of a refresh and a re-promotion of the Academy, ostensibly to the OHDSI community, but also wider. So this will change actually later this year in how it looks, but as it looks now, you'll see some elements around courses we have in there, which we can look at in depth in a moment. Some of the faculty, many of whom are very familiar to you all on this community call. So the roadmap of courses that are coming, and I'll refer to again in a moment. Also, just to mention, we co-promote the EHDEN Academy with other academies or others. So, for instance, the Get Real Institute, which actually Get Real was a series of projects like EHDEN, that is now a legal entity of its own. It's in the post-IMI phase. It's a startup. They have an academy. The HDR UK, so Health Data Research UK, which is the nationwide network in the United Kingdom, have an academy. And the Institute for Innovation Through Health Data, IHD, in Europe also has an academy. So we're creating a kind of an academy alliance between all 4 of us, including the EHDEN Academy, promoting academies to our constituencies, but also likely looking at some federated curriculum work on different content that fits all our different constituencies in terms of data science, epidemiology, bioinformatics, and so on. So watch this space in terms of further work and co-promotion work with our colleagues there. So I'm just showing you this as you would see it as a participant, as a student, as it were, not as I see it, because there's a lot of other stuff that goes on in the background. The EHDEN Academy was set up more than 3 years or more now, using the Moodle open source platform, which is what you're seeing. We started this originally, first and foremost, to support, as Julia mentioned, certified SMEs, so since small to medium-sized enterprises who will work on the ETLs, the mapping to the OMOP Common Data Model with our data partners, they go through a certification process, so they can apply for free to be trained in a consistent, reproducible methodology in conducting the ETL to the OMOP CDM. Once certified, they end up on the EHDEN.eu website as on our business directory, and data partners, but actually others as well, of course, can choose certain of those SMEs to contract with and to conduct their ETLs. And so we created an ETL learning pathway, utilizing various different modules for the SMEs to use in their training and then to be certified. We have 47 SMEs certified, and we've got another 18 in the final call who will be certified, all being well. I hope all of them will next month. In the final call of the project, at least, we'll be doing a number of certifications and recertifications in the coming years, I'm sure. But they all use the ETL learning pathway through this. But actually, then what we did is we expanded this to kind of the tools, skills, and methods that are utilized post-CDM, of course. It's not just about getting onto the CDM and being mapped. Of course, it's then utilizing the standardized analytical pipeline and the tools, but also the methods and skills in being able to conduct research using OMOP map data sets, of course, as well, at scale and network studies and so on. So when you enroll, you end up with a personalized dashboard, which you can edit, customize at leisure. And within this, it will tell you, which courses you're on and enrolled on and so forth. And also, so how it works is you have various courses, you can enroll in any of them. As I say, they're all free. You can complete them and you get a badge. We're a training facility, so we're not like an educational facility, i.e., we're not providing masters and postgraduate courses and certifications and so forth. So we provide these kind of badges. And the idea and the concept behind the academy is really about it's a training facility where people can upskill, particularly in terms of where they're involved now. People are coming in as epidemiologists and biostatisticians and data scientists and so on. And it's really about enriching and enhancing your skill set and your knowledge to be able to utilize OMOP map data sets, the OHDSI research pipeline, and so forth as well within your working practice. And it may well be, and as we've discussed with, for instance, our OHDSI Centre colleagues at the RU, at the Northeastern University, this could lead to some individuals going on, for instance, to do a master's, beyond this as well. But this starts with this kind of training and upskill platform. Just I know it's time, so I just want to do this. We have a number of courses. We now have 17 courses. They are broken down really into kind of tool, skills, and methods that I mentioned previously. Some courses are just there, obviously, to kind of get you started. There's a course around EHDEN itself, for instance, of getting insights. But then we have a number of courses. We have what we call non-professional courses. So one of the partners in the consortium that Julia alluded to earlier in her presentation, that are a member of the EHDEN program, is the European Patients Forum. And the EPF and ourselves have collaborated on creating courses now for kind of like the lay public, if you like. So citizens or those with no real kind of technical background, but wanted to know more about real world data, federated data networks, the OMOP Common Data Model, in EU context, the General Data Protection Regulation for privacy and in law, and indeed, how we conduct research, use case, and so forth, conducting this. And these formats, as you'll see as I scroll through, this is kind of a consistent format for all the courses we have. Some of these are a bit more elaborate than the one I'm showing you right now, but it starts with a video that's probably not so well presented in the Teams environment, but this is like a YouTube type video. In this case, for this one, we have a transcript of this as well. Say it's a lay public course. We are actually now moving to localize these transcripts, not just in English, but in other European languages as well, which is really important, of course. The classic ones like French, Spanish, German, Italian, Portuguese, and others, which also mean they can be used internationally, across different regions of the world as well. So we're looking to localize some of the content to this, but these are some of the more basic courses, as it were, that are available within the overall courses are available. But also then we have a number of these skill-based ones, everything from open science and FAIR principles, so findable, accessible, interoperable, usable principles for working with data in an open science environment. The aforementioned mention of data quality. This is an introductory course. It also links to a podcast also we did within the Voice of Eden with Claire Blacketer around data quality. We aim to do some further in-depth courses development around data quality, but courses around things like phenotype definition, characterization, evaluation, various courses around patient level prediction, in this case on PLP, but also on within conducting studies in PLP, population effect estimation, of course, and so on, but all the kind of fairly standard introductory courses around the various the methods and the tools that are utilized for conducting a number of our studies on top of the OMOP CDM, and then a number of courses that are available within the ETL learning environment and so forth around the infrastructure and utilizing the tools, an Odyssey in a box environment within the virtual machine. That's actually sponsored and supported with our colleagues from Amazon Web Services, which is great, and they've been very supportive, as we know, of course, to Odyssey, but also then in terms of where it all starts, understanding the OMOP CDM and standardized vocabularies, various courses specifically, on ETL itself. A course here, which is actually, it's also available on eden.eu, if I just click that. But actually what we're adding in here are actual videos of a number of our data partners and associated SMEs who are talking about their ETL learning experience, as it were. So if you look at this one, for instance, in Istanbul University, colleagues in Turkey actually outlining their whole experience in working with Eden, but actually from the start of actually, the initial workshops, planning and design of the ETL and so forth, utilization of the Rabbit tools, of course, and then, right through to some of the challenges that they experienced, some of the work that they did to overcome them, and then some of the outcomes, as it were, in terms of completing their mapping and so forth, and then looking at aspects related to data quality, as mentioned earlier, but also in terms of them moving forward to conducting studies. These are fascinating, actually, insights, and they're again freely available in the Academy, but also available under the community section of eden.eu as well. And we will add more to these kind of community-based insights, as it were, and materials which are kind of tangential to the courses we do, but I think are very helpful, I think, in terms of giving more insights into kind of the real-world experience that people have in doing this kind of work. And of course, courses on specific tools like Atlas and so forth as well. We're going to add more to this in the future in terms of further courses, further updates to these courses. Obviously, they don't stay static. The tools and the methods don't stay static. But also in terms of further development, of course, as well, like Perseus in relation to ETL and so forth, speaking with Paul Nagy related to that earlier in our Academy call today. This one's an interesting one. We're moving also into other learning pathways. So for instance, this is one's around health technology assessment, a bit more maybe linked to kind of the European landscape, but increasingly obviously becoming more apparent also in the United States and also other areas internationally in other regions. But this is with our National Institute for Health and Care Excellence colleagues in England, who are also an EHDEN partner. But this is like an introductory course to health technology assessment, but also using real world data and real world evidence. And actually subsequent modules are now following this, and this will become a whole a whole HTA learning pathway going forward in terms of I think moving to a point where people will start to utilize fairly basic courses as foundational, and everyone will probably do similar courses, but then people will stream into specific learning pathways depending on their needs. So for instance, this could be health economist working within a public or private industry setting, for instance, who wants to understand far better the utilization of real world data, particularly in this case mapped to the OMOP CDM, and using the standardized analytical pipelines and methods to conduct relevant studies in an HTA context, but then also how this may maybe be applied going forward in the future, and how that individual may want to utilize their own learning and their own skill base to conduct studies and so forth that are relevant within this setting. And so you'll start to see this kind of differentiation and this increase and focus on learning pathways. So this is a major emphasis of the training environment within within the EHDEN Academy. And as I say, when people complete courses, they get a badge, and that will adds up to this kind of increasing portfolio. We're very focused on evaluating further the metrics here, the outcomes for the overall group of enrolled participants. We're now at 2,600 plus colleagues who are enrolled on courses in nearly 70 countries across Europe since we launched in about 2 years ago, so in April 2020, which is just incredible. And that's to say we haven't really gone really crazy in terms of promoting the academy. So you can imagine, as we promote this further over time, and which is what we'll do, it's going to be really quite remarkable, I think, in terms of the uptake. We're working further in terms of wanting to include more colleagues, not just in terms of participants for the academy and using the courses, but to develop content. And one of the things we also want to look at is, for instance, linking up relevant courses to the work groups. So, like the CDM, for instance, and linking it out to the relevant CDM work group colleagues and so forth. I think that will really be important for future support, ownership, and development of these kind of materials to make sure they're even more increasingly relevant. One of the things I'm going to show you, and I know time is really short, so we've only got, I think, literally a few minutes left. This is the progenitor. This is the start of the and some of you have seen this. Again, stealing Paul Naji's light thunder here, I'm afraid. But Paul has done some diligent work, as you've all seen, and has presented to the community fairly recently on the dashboards, looking at things like YouTube, PubMed, GitHub, and so forth. But he's brilliantly done also one for EHDEN. So this is just looking at the raw data really output through the web API, feeding into the dashboard of those courses where people have enrolled and completed. And we know that obviously in terms of their completion, all courses where there's a required completion have a knowledge checker, and that results in you achieving your badge that you completed your course. And we're already seeing a positive trend here in terms of users by year, but also course completions by year. We obviously haven't completed 2022 yet, but we presume the current trajectories that will surpass 2021. But this is already starting to provide us metrics in terms of understanding, even down to an individual level over time, the performance of the academy, performance of our participants, where things are working, where maybe they're not, how we can start to nuance the course content and make it far more relevant and far more user friendly to enrolled students and so forth. And this kind of feedback loop is obviously critical in terms of having educational metrics. And I cannot say highly enough how important it has that we've seen Paul and his group join our project management team alongside our colleagues at Erasmus, particularly Henrik Johns and others, who really developed much of the infrastructure that you've seen from the start and have been instrumental in terms of developing this academy. So this is a very, very quick tour de force. What you'll see going forward in the future is more courses. There are more courses to come this year and into next year, more emphasis on learning pathways, more nuanced as we use the feedback loop developed from these metrics in terms of further targeting and ensuring that we best benefit the training environment for our participants and getting them the best out of this to use in their own practice, for using CDM data sets and the tool skills and methods to do that optimally within an open science environment, as well as allied courses that can support this too for a wider community. And also I think linking into the education working group, of course, this is one of many number of initiatives and resources that are available internationally, but we want to ensure that kind of networking, that federation of educational resources across the globe, which I think we're in a great position to do so with colleagues from academia and beyond as well, and certainly also seeing importantly then the impact of this over time on the community, clearly in terms of OHDSI, but also wider in terms of individual participants, but also in the quality of the research that has been conducted going forward. And that links into, as Julia mentioned, things like for us the EHDEN portal, importantly, because yes, we map into data, yes, we have various tools and available and so forth to complete your study workflow. But critically, of course, people need to ensure that they're in an optimal position to exploit that as well as they can. And that's a real training need. And certainly, at least in Europe, but clearly globally, upskilling, I think, and training requirements is a massive need, and has been identified by many key stakeholders, including at the policy level, of course, to ensure that we're able to do this going forward in the future, in terms of data science, epidemiology, informaticians, and so on. So look, I think I'm going to stop there. Long tour de force very quickly. I think the big highlights are it's free. If you're not using it, why not? It's freely available. Just enroll, set up an account, use whatever courses you would like to. Give us feedback. We're always welcome to receive that. And certainly if you have suggestions or you even want to be involved in developing further content as well, then please let us know. There'll be an education workgroup session on the final day of the OHDSI Global Symposium in October, so watch out for that too. You're welcome to join the education workgroup to discuss many of these elements. There'll be further work on the metrics and on nuancing the content, further courses, and further focus on these learning pathways as well. And also, I think this federated approach of working with other academies as well, I think will reap benefits in terms of being able to share other content within the OHDSI community to others, but also other content that's relevant to us in the OHDSI community from other providers in this kind of linked or co-promoted learning pathways curriculum as well. So thanks so much, Craig, for the time today. Very quick advert for the Academy, and to Julia for the portal as well. I think we still have a couple of minutes left if maybe there are other questions that people want to raise.
Yeah, we have 4 minutes here. There's a question from Melanie on the chat, so I'm just going to ask it, and then if anybody else has questions, please raise their hand and we'll get to as many as we can. So Melanie asks, using the EHDEN Academy, how long does it take for a person to complete the necessary training to know how to use the OMOP CDM, and how long does training take for a person to be knowledgeable to write an ETL to OMOP their data?
Wow. Okay. So I mean that's a question. In terms of the courses, I mean all the courses have their duration and so forth as well. I think for the ETL learning pathway, it varies because it's directed. So you can on the course you can do it at your own pace, so you don't have to complete the course all in one go. So the courses themselves vary between anything from 30 minutes to 6 hours. So it depends on which modules you choose as to the overall duration for that. I think for the ETL learning pathway, it's something in the region for about 10 hours to 13 hours, I think, depending on which courses you do and so forth as well. But that's probably pretty average, as it were. But again, spread out over time and depending on when you dip in and out of the modules to when you complete them.